When one begins to awaken, the illusion of control starts to lose its grip. Life no longer appears as a series of problems that must be solved, but as a flow that invites surrender. The spiritually awake person starts to see that every attempt to control existence is like trying to command the ocean's waves, a futile effort that only leads to exhaustion. They realize that control was never truly in their hands. It was only an illusion born from fear and misunderstanding. Slowly, this realization doesn't bring weakness, but an unexpected sense of relief. The constant striving, the endless pushing against what is, begins to fade. In its place, a calm trust begins to take root. There comes a quiet understanding that life moves with its own intelligence. Seasons change without being told to. The heart beats without instruction. The breath flows in and out effortlessly. When one observes these simple truths, something softens inside. The mind that once fought for dominance begins to rest. The need to plan every step, to predict every outcome, starts to dissolve. The awakened one no longer tries to manipulate life into fitting a personal design. Instead, they start listening to life itself. They begin to sense a deeper rhythm, one that was always there, humming beneath the noise of worry and control. Letting go of control doesn't mean becoming passive or careless. It means moving with awareness rather than resistance. It's understanding that even challenges and pain have their place in the grand pattern. There's a quiet wisdom in surrendering to what is, not because you give up, but because you see that life is far wiser than your temporary perspective. You begin to act not from fear, but from alignment. You respond instead of reacting. You trust instead of clinging. You stop swimming upstream, and the current of existence carries you where you are meant to be. This shift brings a freedom that cannot be found through force. When you stop needing to control every moment, you discover the beauty of presence. Suddenly, small things become extraordinary. The way light filters through leaves, the way laughter rises without effort, the way your heart beats in harmony with everything around you. Life starts to feel less like a struggle and more like a dance, where every step has meaning, even if you don't yet understand it. In this awareness, fear begins to dissolve. You no longer lie waiting for everything to fall apart, because you know that even if it does, you will flow with it. You begin to see that control was never the path to peace. Surrender was. The spiritually awake person doesn't conquer life. They harmonize with it. They move like a leaf carried by the wind, guided not by force but by trust. And in that gentle surrender, they find the stillness that control could never give. As awakening deepens, the need to please everyone begins to fall away like an old skin that no longer fits. For so long, life may have been lived as a performance, every action carefully shaped to earn love, approval, or validation from others. The opinions of people became the mirror through which worth was measured. But slowly, something changes. A voice within grows louder, not in arrogance, but in truth. It whispers that no amount of approval can fill the emptiness left by betraying one's own authenticity. And so, the awakened person begins to release the exhausting habit of seeking acceptance from every direction. They begin to see that trying to please everyone is a silent prison. No matter how kind, how patient, or how perfect one tries to be, someone will always misunderstand, criticize, or project their own pain onto you. This realization is not bitter, it is freeing. The spiritually awake person understands that peace cannot be built on the unstable foundation of others' opinions. What others see in you is merely a reflection of their own state of being. You are not responsible for how they perceive your light, only for how truthfully you allow it to shine. As this understanding deepens, the fear of disapproval softens. You start speaking words that align with your inner truth rather than those designed to please. You say no when your heart feels no, and yes when your soul resonates yes. You stop performing kindness and start embodying it. This shift doesn't make you harsh or detached. It makes you real. Authenticity replaces approval, and that authenticity becomes your quiet form of freedom. In this space, relationships begin to change. Some fade away because they were built on the fragile threads of validation. Others deepen, rooted now in honesty rather than performance. You realize that those who truly see you do not require you to wear a mask. They recognize your soul through your simplicity, your presence, and your truth. Pleasing others once felt like safety, but now you understand that it was only a barrier, one that kept you from meeting life as you truly are. The spiritually awake person learns that genuine peace does not come from being liked, but from being whole. They stop measuring their worth through applause or criticism. Silence, solitude, and self-respect become more valuable than shallow approval. When you no longer chase validation, Your energy returns to you. You feel lighter, freer, more alive. You start doing things not because they'll be admired, but because they feel right in your heart. And when you live from that space, something magical happens. You begin to attract those who are also free, people who value truth over pretense, connection over convenience. The world no longer feels like a stage, but a shared space of authenticity. Pleasing everyone becomes unnecessary because in being true to yourself, you naturally please the universe. As consciousness awakens, the constant craving for noise begins to fade. The endless hum of distraction that once filled every corner of life starts to feel heavy and meaningless. The television that plays in the background, the constant scrolling through screens, the chatter that never seems to end. All of it once gave a sense of connection, but now it only feels like a veil between you and something deeper. Slowly, you begin to withdraw from the noise, not out of isolation, but out of longing for something real. You start to see that silence is not empty, it is alive. It holds a presence that words can never capture. At first, the silence may feel uncomfortable. The mind, so used to stimulation, searches for something to cling to. But as you sit with it, something extraordinary happens. The restlessness begins to dissolve. Beneath the surface of that quiet, you start to hear subtle sounds that were always there but went unnoticed. The rustle of leaves, the rhythm of your own breath, the faint hum of existence itself. These are not merely sounds. They are the heartbeat of life, whispering reminders of how interconnected everything truly is. In this stillness, you begin to meet yourself, not the version shaped by opinions or roles, but the essence that simply exists. The silence becomes a mirror, reflecting truth without judgment. You begin to see that much of the world's noise was only a distraction from this meeting. The music, the talk, the constant movement, they were all ways of avoiding the simplicity of being. But when you finally sit in the quiet, you realize that peace was never something to be found elsewhere. It was always here, waiting for your attention. With time, silence becomes a sanctuary. You start to crave it more than conversation. You wake up early just to sit in stillness, to feel the morning breathe. You turn off the unnecessary noise and allow your senses to rest. In these moments, creativity flows more naturally, insights rise unforced, and a deep sense of balance fills your being. The silence doesn't take you away from life. it draws you closer to it. Every sound, every sensation becomes sharper, more sacred. As you continue to honor this quiet space, you notice that noise no longer dominates you. You can be in the world, amidst sound and movement, yet remain inwardly still. Silence follows you, not as an absence, but as a companion. It becomes the background of your awareness, the calm ocean beneath all the waves of experience. You realize that what you once feared, that stillness, was never emptiness, but fullness. It holds everything. And in that fullness, you find peace. The spiritually awake person no longer seeks constant noise to feel alive, because they have discovered the living presence that breathes beneath every sound, the silence that speaks louder than words ever could. As awakening unfolds, the fear of being alone begins to transform into something sacred. What once felt like emptiness slowly becomes a space of wholeness. There was a time when silence felt unbearable and solitude felt like punishment, a reminder of separation or rejection. But through awareness, you start to see that being alone is not the same as being lonely. Loneliness is the absence of connection to yourself, while solitude is the rediscovery of it. In stillness, without the noise of others' expectations or the constant pull of the world, you begin to sense your own presence in its purest form. At first, solitude can feel unsettling. The mind, so accustomed to distraction, will search for someone or something to fill the quiet. It will whisper stories of unworthiness, of isolation, of being forgotten. Yet as you stay with the silence, as you sit through the discomfort, instead of running from it, a gentle shift begins. You start to realize that the silence is not your enemy. It's your teacher. It holds space for you to hear the soft voice of your own soul, a voice that was drowned out for so long by the noise of the world. You begin to notice how your energy changes in solitude. The constant need to perform fades. There is no one to impress, no image to maintain. You are free to be raw, unfiltered, and completely yourself. In this honest space, healing begins. You learn to listen to your thoughts without fear, to feel your emotions without judgment, to simply exist without needing validation. The emptiness that once frightened you starts to feel like open space, vast, peaceful, and alive. As solitude deepens, you begin to feel connected to everything around you. You look at the sky, and it feels like it knows your name. The breeze touches your skin, and you sense that life is communicating through it. You realize that aloneness was never the absence of others, but the presence of your true self. It's in this space that creativity blossoms, intuition awakens, and clarity emerges. You start to see that every answer you ever searched for in others was quietly waiting inside you all along. With time, being alone no longer feels like something to escape, but something to return to. You seek it not out of withdrawal, but out of reverence. You find yourself walking alone, yet feeling the entire universe walking beside you. The same life that beats your heart moves through the trees, the stars, and every living thing. You are not separate from it. You are it. The boundary between you and the world softens until it disappears entirely. What was once solitude becomes communion, a sacred meeting with existence itself. The awakened person no longer fears being alone because they have discovered the eternal companionship of their own being, a presence that never leaves, never judges, and never ends. As awareness matures, judgment begins to dissolve like mist under sunlight. The spiritually awake person starts to see that judging others or labeling experiences as good or bad is rooted in misunderstanding. In the earlier stages of life, everything seems divided. Right and wrong, success and failure, light and dark. But awakening brings the realization that these opposites are not enemies. They are two sides of the same truth. You begin to see that judgment comes from fear, from the mind's desire to categorize what it doesn't understand. When you step beyond that narrow view, compassion naturally arises, because you finally see that every person is simply expressing the level of awareness they currently have. You start to notice how exhausting judgment really is, how it creates separation where there was once unity, how it blinds you to the beauty in imperfection. Every time you judge someone, you build a wall between yourself and them. But the more you awaken, the more you realize that those walls only confine you. They keep you from truly experiencing the vastness of life. Slowly, you begin to soften. Instead of asking, "What's wrong with them?" you begin to wonder, "What pain might they be carrying?" This simple shift turns criticism into understanding and resistance into empathy. When judgment fades, life begins to appear as it truly is, not a battlefield of opposites, but a dance of balance. You stop labeling experiences as blessings or curses, and instead see them as necessary movements of growth. The difficult people, the painful moments, the disappointments, all of them become teachers, disguised as challenges. You realize that the very situations you once resisted were shaping your heart into something stronger and wiser. This recognition dissolves bitterness. Acceptance begins to bloom. In this expanded awareness, you also become gentler with yourself. The voice of self-criticism grows quiet as you understand that your mistakes were never failures, only steps on the path of remembering who you are. You no longer punish yourself for not knowing better before, because now you see that every experience was leading you here. You learn to forgive yourself, and in doing so, you find it easier to forgive others. Compassion becomes effortless, not as a virtue to practice, but as a natural expression of your being. With this deep understanding, the illusion of separation fades. You see yourself in others and others in yourself. The boundaries between me and them blur until they dissolve completely. When someone acts with anger or ignorance, you no longer react. You recognize the same struggle you once carried. And instead of judgment, you offer patience. The awakened person does not see enemies, only reflections. In this state, kindness flows without effort, because you realize that to harm another is to harm yourself. In the end, judgment gives way to love, and love becomes the only true way of seeing.